A trade rejected by the NBA, a season lost by punching a team equipment manager, and an emoji war that nearly broke them apart. The Lob City Clippers had all of this, and the key ingredient for any contender, a fear factor. When you face an NBA team, you're trying to avoid losing. When you face the Lob City Clippers, you were trying to avoid getting embarrassed. Like this, or this, and a little bit of this. But to be fair, it's not us who should be apologizing for brutal posters. The Clippers should apologize for fumbling the greatest era in their franchise history. No, this is not the 2020 bubble where a 3-1 lead in the first ever Battle of LA were blown. This was the Lob City Clippers, a blissful and painful era Clippers fans lived through for years. For a team that made the playoffs 7 times in nearly 4 decades, you would think they'd make the most out of Chris Paul, the first rookie All-Star since Shaq, and a guy with Kyrie Irving's plant-based diet, right? Wrong. This is what really happened to the Lob City Clippers, why their stars had beef with each other, and how an unforgettable and unbelievably frustrating run ended in flames. A ClutchPoints original. In 2011, the Los Angeles Clippers pulled off a trade for Chris Paul to join forces with their high-flying duo of Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. The best passer in the game with 2 of the biggest aerial threats? Just like that, a new title contender was born. Even Hot Take Bert can agree. But there's more than meets the eye during this time. Had David Stern not stepped in, Paul would have instead played for the Lakers, wreaking havoc with the Black Mamba. In 2011, the Hornets were owned by the league, making Stern the de facto owner. Hornets GM Dell Demps negotiated a 3-team trade between the Hornets, Lakers, and Rockets. Stern infamously vetoed the trade. He felt the Hornets were receiving the short end of the stick. This opened the door for the Clippers to swoop in and trade for Paul. This Clipper team was a blockbuster, but they were also complicated. They made the playoffs, but they never progressed beyond the second round in 6 seasons. Before them, the Clippers had just 7 playoff appearances and 2 series wins since entering the league in 1970. Things weren't so great for the Clippers. A dismal record in 08-09 got them the first overall pick in the 2009 draft. That pick turned into Blake Griffin, signaling the franchise's resurgence. But Blake would miss the entire 2009-10 season due to injury. Yeah, unfortunately that would be a regular occurrence. Back for the 2010-11 season, Blake made an immediate impact, leading the Clippers in scoring and rebounding in his rookie season. He was Rookie of the Year and an All-Star in his very first season. That put him in some elite company. The Clippers were also lucky to draft DeAndre Jordan in the second round of the 08 draft. With Griffin and Jordan in place, an elite floor general was the need of the hour. Enter Chris Paul. At the time of the trade, Paul was a 4-time All-Star, 2-time assist leader, and he was widely considered the league's best floor general. Their first season together, Griffin and Paul were named All-Star starters for the West. The Clippers would win 40 games in the lockout-shortened 11-12 season for the 5th seed, but they were dealt a blow when Chauncey Billups tore his Achilles tendon, becoming unavailable for the playoffs. The Clippers would beat the Grizzlies in a grueling 7-game series to progress to the semifinals, only to be swept by the Spurs juggernaut. But the future was promising. Free agents Jamal Crawford and Matt Barnes were signed, and Lob City was geared up and ready to go. A division title and a 4-0 sweep of the Lakers in the season series established the Clippers as the new force in LA. The 4th-seeded Clippers again matched up with the grit and grind Grizzlies in the first round. Leading 2-0, the Clippers collapsed, losing the series with a 4-game skid. An injury to Griffin in practice left him hampered in Game 5. He played through discomfort and ultimately exited the game in the 3rd quarter. Blake would come off the bench in Game 6, only to play 14 minutes. The season was yet another major disappointment. Out went Vinny Del Negro, in came Doc Rivers to lead the show. The Clippers traded for sharpshooter J.J. Redick in the offseason. A number of injuries didn't stop them from adding another division title. They knocked off the Warriors in a tight 7-game series, but stumbled in the semis for the 2nd straight year, with the 4-2 loss to the Thunder. Heading into 14-15, Rivers wanted the Clippers to have substance beyond being a fun team that dunks all the time. Blake Griffin echoed the same. He literally said, "No more Lob City." But was it really? Not at all. Focusing on defense and floor spacing, the rebranded Clippers notched 56 wins for the 3rd seed. Up against the defending champion Spurs in the first round, it came down to this in Game 7. A thrilling victory, and the Clippers were rolling. But back in the semis for the 3rd time in 4 seasons, they took a commanding 3-1 series lead over the Rockets. It seemed that they were destined to make their first ever conference finals, and then it all came crashing down. The Clippers relinquished a 3-1 lead. Yes, in 2020 they would do so again, and stumbled when it mattered most. The Clippers had some real soul-searching to do. Despite 50-win seasons the next 2 campaigns, the Clippers lost in the first round each time, a 4-2 loss to the Blazers in 16 and a 4-3 loss to the Jazz in 17. Injuries reared their ugly head. Both Blake Griffin and Chris Paul went down in Game 4 versus the Blazers with the series tied 2-2, and neither star played again. In 2017, Blake Griffin suffered a toe injury in Game 3. He was out for the rest of the series. For one reason or the other, the Clippers failed to reach the heights that they were expected to. Only in the 2014 playoffs were the Clippers playing at full strength. Griffin missed half a season in 15-16 after punching a team equipment manager and fracturing his hand. DeAndre Jordan would be relegated to his own personal game of Hack-A-Jordan. And then there were the unrepaired cracks, as JJ Redick described them. It was reported that Griffin felt the team was his, but Paul's arrival changed the status quo. Paul's locker room presence hindered Griffin in his goal to be viewed as a leader. Paul and Jordan had their share of chemistry issues as well, and DeAndre nearly signed with the Mavericks in response. That is, until Blake Griffin put DeAndre under house arrest, with a chair. Evidently, many of Lob City's shortcomings were self-destructive events. The era came to an end in 2017 with Chris Paul's trade to the Rockets. In the end, there wasn't much to show for it, but it cannot be denied that this phase was the best in franchise history to date. Prior to 2011, they had never won more than 40 games in a season. Lob City recorded 5 50-win seasons in 6 years. They had 6 playoff appearances in that stretch compared to 7 in their entire history before 2012. Unfortunately for them, Lob City ended up just short of NBA history.